Hello there viewers, welcome to the Musings of Maverick channel. I'm your host Maverick, and today we're going to be starting a new series, The Millionaire Detective, Balance Unlimited. So, as I usually like to do for the first video of a series, I like to quickly go over an introduction to the series' background, and also to my channel as well, since I'm sure that there is a lot of new friends joining in on the fun as well. So, typically I structure my videos into three different parts for every video. At the beginning, I'll have an introduction or a recap. In the middle part, I will have my blind reaction. And finally, bringing up at the very end, I will always have a review/discussion session where I dive a little bit deeper into the various concepts and topics that the episode or series brings up. I like to do a deeper analysis of these parts. I do find it fun, and I also think that's what makes my content fun as well, rather than just being a reaction, if you will. But if you enjoy any of those parts, they'll all be timestamped below, so you can just jump to whichever part that you would like. So, with that out of the way, let's talk a little bit about this series, right? It's because out of all the series that's happening for this season, I feel like this one is very unique in terms of its background. So, the original work was a novel, and you're probably asking, hey Maverick, what's so special about that? Tons of light novels and novels are being adapted every single season. What's special about this, right? Well, the novel at hand is actually a very short one. It consisted of one volume, and also it is very old. So the original novel for this series actually was published 45 years ago, right, in the 1970s. So that was a long time ago. And this is actually not the first adaptation of that novel that has happened, although the previous adaptation was actually a television drama. So, basically having actors acting out on television. So before we get into that though, let's talk a little bit about the basic synopsis of this story. So as the name implies, the story is focused around a detective who comes from wealth, right? So in the original setting, this is a guy, basically comes from a rich family, although he does want to serve the public, serve the people, so he chose to become a detective, and he's generally pretty low-key about his family fortune, except for the fact that because he was brought up in a rich family and rich surroundings, some of his behaviors just don't fit with the general public at all, right? So he doesn't really have a concept of how normal people live their lives. He uses, of course, things that are from very expensive brands, including watches and cars and clothing and all that, and that's where the entertainment value of the series comes from, right? So it's a guy, even though he's very rich, he's still trying to solve these basically, it's sort of like your, how can I say it? Your gentleman's, just think of Sherlock Holmes, except that he comes from a rich background, right? So something of that sort. You can understand where the humor might come from in terms of that kind of context. Now, when it was adapted into a television drama, they actually changed it around. So instead of having a guy, they changed it into a girl, a female character. So even though it followed the same sort of context as the original novel, so again, more on the low key, and not really flaunting her wealth and whatnot. No, they simply changed gender, and also they added a lot more original stories to it as well. So this being a detective/mystery series, they are trying to solve cases, solve crimes and whatnot, and the television drama actually put out a lot more of their own stories, their own cases for the detective to solve. It was actually quite well received, this television drama. So it was a successful adaptation, even though a lot of things were changed. And by the way, that television drama is also around, I think, 15 years old. It occurred sometime in the 2000s, and so now that brings us to 2020, right? And we have another adaptation, although this time it's in anime format. So the main character is a guy, so you might be thinking, hey, are they actually finally going to adapt the original thing? Unfortunately, it does not seem so, because looking from the promotional video, it seems that this new detective, rich kid detective, is one that actually flaunts around his wealth. So he throws his wealth into people's face. He's basically like, yeah, I'm rich and I know it. What you gonna do about it? And I'm rich, you guys are all trash, you know, that kind of vibe, right? And they actually paired him with another male character as well, so there's actually two main characters for the series, and the other guy is a little bit more, he's also a detective as far as I can tell, and he's more down to earth, right? More of your typical dude, if you will. So they definitely changed around on that part as well. I can only presume they might be changing some of the stories and cases to better fit this format, since they already went through the trouble of changing this overall setting, right? And with that in mind, that brings us to probably the decisions in terms of the production studio as well as the staff, right? Since this is, I guess you could say, sort of like semi-original series now, and the animation company is actually Cloverworks, so quite a well-respected name within the industry. Lots of great works. I've done some of their works on my channel as well, such as The Promised Neverland and Bunny Girl Senpai, right? So, no problems there. The staff, typically I look at the director and the scriptwriter. These two I feel like are the most important to any sort of series. The director, his background comes from a lot of pretty good works, but he's never actually been the main director of those works. He was always the assistant director of those. And these include works such as Death Note, such as Summer Wars, such as The Girl Who Leapt Through Time. So, you know, all great works, except that he was only the assistant director to those works. So it remains to be seen how well he does being the one at the helm of this new series. The series composer, not really that many works I'm familiar with. Honestly, I haven't watched anything from him. However, it seems that he is the main scriptwriter for the very popular series Haikyuu, which a lot of people love. So I guess it isn't going to be too bad, right? It doesn't seem to be something to particularly worry about. So, with all that being said, I guess the rest depends on us to actually get into the episode and see if it's any good or not. So, let's jump right into it. Alright, let's begin in 3, 2, 1, play. You know, I also do hope that they actually are going to be focusing on the, mystery solving, case solving aspect of it. I did 2 sort of mystery series last season, It Invaded and Inspector, and those 2, I was expecting something more like Sherlock Holmes or Case Closed, aka Detective Conan. Not really the case. Okay, I would venture a guess and say this is probably the Millionaire Detective. Looks high class, right? What? Did your parents die? Are you actually Batman? Okay, and I believe this is the other dude. Are you sure you aren't watching Porn Network? Modern Crimes Force. Yeah, definitely rich. Is that his private plane? Gin. What is with this division? Modern Crimes? Oh, you're certainly bored. How come you guys Holy crap! Yeah, that is his private plane, dude. No billionaire, even billionaires don't have private jumbo jets. Ugh. Yeah, modern crime prevention. What do they mean by modern crime? The Kambe family. Yeah, there we go. The opening. Hmm. There's a female lead as well. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. I definitely came into this series because I did sort of like this concept of having, this millionaire detective. Oh. Hmm. Was he demoted? Of some. Of course, they had to have this. Hmm. Lost Job Guide. Are these two actually? Okay, it looks like these two are going to make a heist. Yeah, but you really shouldn't be doing that. Yeah, the guy definitely wants to check it out. Okay.
相変わらずですね。一家を出されたからってそんなナイーブな正義を振りかざすことないでしょ。警察も役所である以上政治と利害をつけながらやっていくしかないんです。
Okay. Probably kicked out for disobeying orders. And so he's joining the modern crime. Cigar. 4 stars? That's probably the head honcho. Why are you guys even using your real names? Oh my god. Okay, we'll take it. Isn't it right there? And that's what they're using, of course, as a getaway. Oh. Damn. Is he? Is he really? Huh? Oh. What? Oh, this dude. This dude. I came, I saw, I sponsored. No, he actually, I think the kanji is I bought. I came, I saw, I bought. That's the prince, isn't he?
ちらはアブラ首長国の第7王子です。失礼ですよ。
トルミ、ナードショルタ。ああ、
フギダメ。ヒュスク、小切手を。かしこまりました。
This dude.
入金完了いたしました。
What? Oh my god, this dude. Insanity. What?
ヒュスク、当該者の現在地は？港区新橋の品川方面へ逃走中です。勝どき橋へ誘導しろ。パトカーなど警察車両も排除。了解いたしました。だと、どういう意味だ？
They'll just get in the way.
派手にやってくれたな。一体どう責任取るつもりだ？ヒュスク、騒ぎに巻き込まれた人間、車両、建物をすべて確認。
Just pay her.
保証しておけ。了解いたしました。
How does he have
誰と話してる？執事だ。あと10分か。くそ、こっちもか。おい、中央通りも渋滞起きてるぞ。しっかりナビしろ。銀座から新橋付近にかけて局所的に信号機
clear run path? Oh my god, this is insanity. In 3 minutes? That's impossible, dude. I guess they're just gonna make the bomb fall into the river. Special request for You know, all things considered, this is probably the method that caused the least amount of casualties and damages. Oh, you are in for it now. He's like, it's fine. I love this dude.
別にいいみたいだよ。聞きました。何をだ。今回の被害、相場の2倍の金額が支払われたらしいっすよ。
Here he is.
よく来てくれた。こちら神戸大輔君だ。今日から我々の仲間になる。かの神戸家の人間でイギリスで専門的な教育を受けて。
He's gonna be like, I'm gonna just make my own office.
何があんなのは警察官のやり方じゃねえよ。ヒーローじゃあるまいし、命がいくつあっても足りやしねえ。なるほど。いくらだ。
Only 1.3 million yen? That's definitely not realistic at the least, just with all those classic cars itself. Although maybe it was in thousands or something. I can definitely already see the sort of dynamic these two are gonna have. I love this, actually. Although I've no doubt that, you know, considering the anime fan base, I'm sure lots of people will be shipping these two together as well. And this is a pretty bopping ending song as well. Alright, see you guys after this. Alrighty, so that was an awesome first episode introduction to this series. I gotta say, I'm liking it very much right off the bat. So let's talk about a few things that happened in this episode, right? First of all, I made a sort of mistake at the very end there, so it seems that it's going, I would guess that it's going to be a recurring theme for this series, which is at the end of an episode, they tally up, you know, how much it exactly costed Kanbei to, you know, how much it cost in monetary terms. So I was trying to immediately do a calculation to USD there. Of course, I know that it's in Japanese yen. I was trying to immediately do a calculation, and I was I was off by by a factor of 10, right? So he actually ended up paying 13 million US dollars in this episode, of which by the way, 10 million was directly to the prince to pay for his car. So if we take that out, actually the rest of it isn't really all that much, and is more, I guess, a pretty reasonable kind of amount, to be honest. I thought he would end up paying a lot more, but apparently not so. I mean, if you think about it, he didn't, beyond actually ramming through all those classic cars, he didn't really cause that much other damages, right? So, yeah, but it definitely is going to be something interesting to see at the end of every episode. So it didn't turn out to be as ridiculous an amount as I was expecting, and so this is well within the means of, let's say, for instance, a billionaire, right? Not to mention, I mean, they literally say his funds are unlimited. Of course, I highly question that, but okay, whatever. So, we definitely set the tone here, right? With, particularly with the main character, Kanbei Daisuke, Daisuke? Sorry, not Daisuke. Daisuke. And I gotta say, I am loving his character. I'm so glad that we actually have a main character who is not trying to be a goody two-shoes. He's an asshole, he absolutely knows it, he does things over the top, he has no regard for any rules or regulations, and honestly, to me, that is so goddamn refreshing, right? Of course, bear in mind, this is fiction, right? Obviously, I'm not advocating that this happened in reality, but it's just, if you're going to have fiction, why not go all out, right? This is completely over the top. I mean, money doesn't work this way in the real world. You're not, of course, it can help you do things, but it's never going to allow you to just blatantly disregard all the rules and laws and so on and so forth, right? Not in this kind of context. But still, this is a fictional universe. This is fiction. Why not let him do whatever he wants, right? And I gotta say, the most funny moment out of this episode for me was definitely when he did not help out Kato at the very end. Kato. When he didn't, when Kato was hanging over the bridge and almost falling down, and then Kanbei just looked at him and smirked and then allowed him to fall down. I mean, that was the moment I knew I would love this series, right? He's absolutely an asshole, but that's what's so entertaining about all this. And I gotta say, for characters like Kanbei, I do take sort of, I am sort of, I do kind of dislike this kind of moral, upright, upstuck kind of character, right? Although, to be fair to Kanbei here, sorry, not Kanbei, to be fair to Kato here, he didn't really do anything that was too over top. Like, he's not trying to be a sort of, a moral warrior or a warrior of justice or of that kind of thing. Yeah, sure, I can definitely see why he is a little bit overbearing, but the only thing I would really say that's maybe he overstepped a little bit was the breach of protocol by, barging in on, what is honestly classified info that he should not be able to have access to. But beyond that, I can't say I hate this character yet, right? Because he's still trying to do the good thing, right? He's still trying to do he has his own sense of justice. It's just that his sense of justice definitely I always consider myself more on the gray side of things. The ends justify the means, that kind of thing. Whereas here, I can definitely say out of the two, I vastly enjoy Kanbei's character a lot more. And by the way, for this episode, for instance, you can't really cancel events anytime you receive a warning of a terrorist attack or something. The world doesn't really work this way. If that happened, nobody would be able to do anything. In this case, in particular, they mention interference from the Kantei, right? So just for anyone who doesn't know what that actually refers to, the Kantei is actually referring to the Japanese Prime Minister's residence, so that's where he lives at. It's basically a sort of, what's the word for it? Metronome? I think it's called metronome or something. But basically, when you use a certain place to describe a particular political system or whatnot. So, say for instance, the president of the United States, if he has anything to say or whatnot, or he is receiving an official, he has an official announcement, we would substitute that with the White House has declared, something of that sort, right? Or say for instance, in the if something like the UK government decide to do something, we would say Westminster, right? Instead of just saying, Parliament, the UK Parliament, or something like that. It's just sort of like another word for the term. So in this case, saying Kante would basically mean this is the Prime Minister's wishes. So we need to proceed as usual. And it's absolutely correct. The police force is a very political. It is. They serve the government, right? So they absolutely do have to listen to that. And this sort of conflict between bureaucracy and the field agents, this is a tale as old as time. I think, of course, we always like to identify or side with the field agents or whatnot. Yeah, they're the ones who are actually putting their lives on the line, so on and so forth. And who are you guys, bigwigs, not doing anything, just sitting back, and yada yada yada, right? We've seen this tale as old as time, right? Now, as I have matured, though, honestly, I've gained a much better appreciation for the things that the bureaucracy actually brings. If they didn't do their jobs, you wouldn't be able to do your field work, actually. So I don't really like to go into these kind of series saying, yeah, well, who are, kick all those bureaucrats out or whatnot. They serve a necessary evil. If they didn't exist, then you can't do, your agency would cease to exist, right? And that's the unfortunate, we live in a democracy, and so they have to answer to the government has to answer to the public, and it's all the way down, right? So that's just the way it works. But yeah, beyond all that, like I said, I do vastly enjoy Kanbei's character a lot more. I mean, for Kato, we can basically already know, what happened to him, right? He basically probably got into some sort of argument with his superiors, and so he was transferred to this, division, the modern crime division or whatnot, which, by the way, is non-existent. So the first division is actually a very famous division within Japanese police. It's basically, you can consider them, it's not really a good equivalent, but consider them like the FBI or something, right? So, actually, no, I don't think that's a very good sort of, I don't think that's a very good sort of parallel. Basically, they are the most famous division within Japanese police force because they are the ones that are handling all the homicide cases, and just the general police stuff, right? And whereas the other divisions or other sort of agencies would handle other things, maybe more related with, such as counterfeiting, organized crime. Organized crime is a little bit more ambiguous. Actually, is organized crime part of First Division? Huh. Actually, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think First Division, handles the more exact sort of, murders, homicides, that kind of thing, right? So, yeah, and in this episode, we can see that Kanbei has requested to be transferred to this modern crime division, which I still don't know what exactly that entails. Like I said, it's non-existent, right? But we can definitely infer that it's more of a third-rate division within the police force. Generally, getting the end of the stick, let's say. So he has his reason for being here. It is kind of interesting to guess at Kanbei's backstory as well. I was initially thinking maybe this is a Batman kind of situation, right? His parents were brutally murdered while he was a child, and then he gained this sort of, it caused him to develop into the person he is today, and he wants to use money to solve everything and get at all these criminals. But, I'm thinking about it a little bit more. I don't think it's actually this kind of case. I believe in the original novels, Kanbei's parents still were alive, so I don't know, they might be sort of misleading us to this sort of direction, and then in the end it's like, nothing really happened, they're still alive and well, I just simply want to do this because I'm bored, right? I could totally see it going that way as well. But, we'll see. And we can definitely infer, what's going to happen in the future, right? Particularly with the dynamic between Kanbei and Kato. So Kanbei is probably going to have to learn that some things just can't be solved or bought with money, right? or it's undoubtedly gonna be some sort of wake up call to him as well. Although I highly doubt that his confidence will be in any way shaken. And then for Kato, I would venture a guess and say maybe he will learn, the ends justify the means. Even though, like, take this episode for instance. Even though Kanbei used a very brash way of resolving the situation, I would honestly say that it probably caused the least amount of casualties and damage, considering all the other alternatives, right? Really, even for most of the damages or most of the most of the most of the compensation that was dished out from him, from Kanbei, he could have avoided most of it, right? If he did not hijack the car from the prince, and not hijack, if he did not acquire the car from the prince, and if he did not, go up and ram all those classic cars in the back, and ram his own car as well, he could have avoided a lot of these, damages, and those weren't even necessary, right? I certainly don't think that was the quickest way to get to Kato during that point in time. So, I really, even though he is certainly acting like an asshole, I really can't disagree with the end result of what happened in this episode, right? And probably Kato will need to, he will need to give him that as well. He will need to admit to that, and maybe pick another fight with Kanbei. Oh man, this is gonna be fun. I can already see that the clashes that these two will have. Now I am hoping that in the future episodes, we are going to get more of some actual detective work, actual crime solving, because I do kind of like this kind of stuff. And I do want to see different creative ways in which Kanbei can use his money in order to solve this situation, right? It definitely presents a more unique kind of take on classic mystery solving and detective cases, and I do want to see how they can go with it. So there we go. I will most probably be making a series out of this, so stay tuned for the next episode next week. And by the way, I was actually a little bit, it was an error on my part. I mixed up the time that it was going to air. So next week, the episode will be uploaded in the same day that it releases. So you guys can look forward to that. So there we go. That's it for episode 1. Hope you guys enjoyed this. I'll see you guys next week. Bye bye.